Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Michael Brady. I'm a technical trainer here at InterSystems, and today we're going to be talking about proactive alerting, and we'll get into exactly what I mean by that. Exactly what I mean by that in a little bit. I'm also here with Sue O'Leary. She's also a technical trainer here at InterSystems and going to be helping me out. Sue, would you like to say hi?
Hello.
All right, so let's just go ahead and get going. So today we're talking about proactive alerting. Okay, and really what we mean by that is alerting folks that are outside of the integration team, or alerting folks that really are administrators or support people that are not actually directly interacting with Ensemble. For example, you could have a guy here named Michael, and Michael is the admin or one of the admins for the main EMR system, or maybe he's a support guy. And we also have Sue. Maybe she's the administrator for the lab system, okay? So something happens inside the integration engine, whether it be Health Connect or Ensemble, HealthShare, okay? And we've identified that there's a potential problem. We want to proactively alert somebody outside of really the core integration team that, hey, there could be a problem here. Okay, so a very common thought then on that is, well, what if we just don't receive any messages, any ADTs, for example, from the main EMR in, say, 10 minutes, say. Okay, it's a big hospital, hundreds of beds. We would expect at least one ADT to pump through the integration engine in 10 minutes, at least during the main business hours. Okay, so there's a setting called inactivity timeout that we're going to use to address that problem, and then some other fancy stuff we can do inside here to actually get the email to go to Michael when it's the EMR that hasn't sent a message in 10 minutes, or go to Sue when it's the lab that hasn't sent a message in 10 minutes. And maybe you want that time on the lab to be actually longer than the main EMR, and that would of course make sense because less messages overall come from the lab system. So as we get into this, first I'd like to just get some interaction from all of you. So what we're going to do is we are going to show our first poll question. And this question is basically just going to ask you, like, how many of you right now currently send alerts from the integration engine to folks outside of the integration team, or how many of you would want to? And let's just make sure that that is... there we go. Do you currently, or would you like to, send alerts to people that do not directly work with Ensemble, Health Connect, HealthShare? You just answer yes, no, or I don't know. And maybe by the end of this, if you say I don't know, we'll convince you that it can be a good idea, depending on your setup. Okay, so it looks like a little over half of us say yes. Interesting. Glad you're here. Some of us say no, and then we also have some I don't knows. Great. So it's cool to see that a majority of everybody is actually doing this right now. I'm sure you're going to have some good questions that will come into Sue that are related to what I'm going to be talking about here, or maybe slightly tangential to that as well. Okay, just before we keep going, let's just distinguish between proactive alerting and what I would just call like a reactionary alert. So if an HL7 message flies through, comes from EMR, ADT, TCP, so that's just coming from the main EMR, ADTs coming through here, ORMs from the main ER come in here, and we just send to a business process, we execute a DTL, and the DTL errors, right? We actually have a problem at that point, right? Of course, we want to generate alert. We want to route that. We probably want to route that to the integration engine team, the folks supporting the integration engine, because, well, it was an error. It was a DTL error. There might be some bad code that was written in the DTL. Okay, so that's really happening because, like, we wrote bad code or something in the integration engine failed. Therefore, of course, an integration support person should address that. Okay, slightly different from that is this idea of inactivity, right? Where you just haven't received something in 5 minutes, say, from the main EMR. And you're in the main window of main business hours. There's a lot of activity at the hospital, thousands of messages flowing around because people get admitted, discharged, transfers, updates, okay, all that stuff. And you're just suspecting that there could be a problem from the main EMR. Maybe you don't have as much control in the main EMR or the lab system for it to, generate an alert on its own. So you say, well, hey, I'm just going to set something up in the integration engine to basically, we're raising an eyebrow saying there might be a problem here because we haven't received a message in 5 minutes or 10 minutes or what have you. Okay, now along with that, you might want to email different people, right, based on the component that throws the error or goes inactive. You also might want to say, well, after 6 o'clock, after 6 p.m., there's not as much traffic, so I don't really want to send out an alert every time. Okay, so we only care about this. We're only being proactive during the main business hours. Maybe it's 6 p.m. for you or 5 p.m., whatever it happens to be. So the window maybe 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Okay, also, when you do send them an email, maybe you want it to be formatted differently. So when an email goes to the integration team, you want that email to say, like, here's the Ensemble session ID, here is the actual alert text, all that stuff. But maybe when you send the email to the other application admins or support people, you want it to be much lighter. You just want it to say, email coming from the integration engine or integration team, and here's the alert text error, but nothing else about Ensemble messages and all that. Or maybe you do want the Ensemble messages, right? Just the idea here is that you truly might want different emails to go out based on the error that is thrown. Okay. Let's go ahead and just before I get into the demo here, we'll just ask one more poll. So this is related to the first one. Basically, we're wondering how many of you are utilizing the inactivity timeout setting to accomplish your proactive alerting? So a lot of you guys are emailing alerting folks that are outside of the integration engine team. And basically, I just want to know if you're using inactivity timeout on your business services to do that. So just go ahead and answer a yes, no, or a I don't know what that is. And then after this, we will get into the demo, and I'll walk through what I have. Okay, so 15 out of 58, so about a quarter of us are using inactivity timeout, and then a lot of us are not. Okay, very interesting. And maybe you're not using inactivity timeout because you don't know exactly how to accomplish this window where you do want an alert in one window and you don't want to send the alert after that main business hour window. And we're going to get into that in the demonstration. So let's go ahead and drop into the demo. We are going to be bouncing around many different parts of Ensemble as this, the description for this webinar described. We're assuming that you have a certain amount of alerting knowledge going in here. Okay. Okay, so here I have a production running, right? And I have something set up very similar to what we see on the board, what I just drew on the whiteboard. Okay, so we have these business services from EMR ADT TCP, from EMR ORM TCP, one from the lab, one from radiology. Okay, these actually are not TCP services; they're actually just file services, but don't worry about that. They also each have their own router, right? So of course, from EMR, ADT is sending to this router, and so on. Okay, I have these broken up in categories. I have ones that are more interesting for alerting right now, so this is what we're going to focus on. Okay, so the inactivity timeout setting, we see it on business services. And so the purpose of this setting, the way it works, right, is that if from EMR ORM TCP does not handle a message in 10 seconds, okay, it's going to throw an alert because, of course, we have, we want alert on error checked. And inactivity timeout is set to 10. Now, 10 is probably a slightly unrealistic window. You might actually set that for like 300. That's seconds, right? So 300 seconds would be 5 minutes. So that's if this component doesn't handle a message in 5 minutes, it throws an alert, and then we're going to send that to ens.alert, of course, and ens.alert's going to route the message, and we'll get into the logic there. Okay. So let me go ahead. I'm just going to turn that one to 0 for now. Okay, so inactivity timeout of 0 means that it's not going to throw, it's never going to go inactive. Now, the reason this makes more sense for business services, or you can use it for business services kind of in a different way for business processes and operations, is that you care more about the flow coming into the business services than you necessarily do on the operations, right? It's like you're catching the problem up front. You don't necessarily need to manage every single one of your components and see how active they are. You really want to know, like, what inactivity timeout solves is, am I getting messages from the upstream application in a certain window of time, say, 300 seconds or 5 minutes. Okay. So let's go ahead and say, yep, inactivity timeout of 10 for my from EMR ADT TCP. And once I apply that, right, in 10 seconds, it's going to turn yellow. Okay. And it's going to send a message over here to ens.alert. Okay, so it turned yellow there. And actually, there's a monitor component, kind of like a background component that sends the alert to ens.alert. But let's just go ahead and see that. So we sent a message to ens.alert, inactivity timeout of 10. Make sure we're... Okay. We executed a rule that we're going to look at in a second. We put in a visual trace and a DTL, and then we're actually emailing Michael Brady for this one. Okay. Now, and just like we saw on the board, right, Michael, just imagining, is the admin for the EMR application. Okay, so here I have ens.alert. It's actually sending out two messages here, right? We send an alert request to this email to application admins. That's a special business operation that's just supposed to email those external admins. Here we have an alert request going to, maybe you have a business operation that sends to an issue tracking system as well, okay? I have that component disabled, so you see that message disabled. It's really number 4 that we care about. And again, that went to Michael Brady. And here we see alert from integration engine. Maybe Michael Brady, the admin of the EMR, doesn't actually know like what Ensemble or what Health Connect is. So of course you can change the text in here. I'm including a bunch of detail. You don't have to do that. It's nice to include the node because then I would know if it was the live server. And yeah, this just text I slightly edited to say alert from integration engine because they might not know what Ensemble is. All right, let's see another one, and I'm going to have let's give lab, make sure lab has a category of alert, just to simplify everything. And let's go and see what happens when we get the lab to throw an error here. Okay. And of course, we said that Sue is the admin on the lab system. And so what's going to happen when the lab goes inactive is that we're going to get an email that goes out to Sue O'Leary at InterSystems.com. You give that 10 seconds. We'll come back to the message viewer. Got it. And Sue laughs and gives me a thumbs up. She did get the email. And so you can see that one's going to Susan O'Leary at InterSystems.com. Okay, so there's a couple ways to do this. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of how this is done, and then we're going to increase the complexity as we kind of march through the demo here. So, of course, ens.alert, well, not of course, but in this case, we're just keeping it simple and making ens.alert a routing rule, okay? So it is just a general message router. So it is just a general message router here. I hope that was just a blip. And let's take a look at the rule. A lot of you have looked at these before, so you might even know what I'm explaining as we go through this. Okay, so here, so remember, when an alert gets generated by any one of the components, okay, the framework is just baked right into the framework. We send in an ens.alert request over to the component called ens.alert, which is this guy. Happens to be a general message router, and we have some rules here. Okay, so my first condition says if document.alert text starts with inactivity timeout. So I'm basically saying there, if the incoming message, right, if the alert text on the incoming message starts with inactivity timeout, okay, well then it's one of these inactivity alerts. We probably want to email an external admin, okay, or a support person. But also, I only want to do that in a certain time range, okay? Because that inactivity timeout of 5 minutes or 10 minutes, okay, we only want to do that between 6 and 5, okay, or 6 and 17, okay? This z is current time within range is a function that I wrote, okay? It's just playing around with the z time h and z time out of the box cache functions. And basically what this does is it returns a 1 if the current time is within the range of the 2 times given as arguments. Time should be in this format. Okay, so always good to document your custom functions. So you just put a start time and an end time there. So it says if it's an activity timeout and it's within this range where we know there should be a lot of traffic in the hospital, that's really bad that your main EMR didn't send a message within 5 minutes. So we are going to send that external admin an email. Now, if we pass that condition, then we drop into the send. Okay. If we don't pass that condition, we're going to go on to the next when. Okay, and this is actually a nice use of 2 whens here, because we can't just say, okay, well, if we don't pass that condition, have an otherwise. We still want to check, well, if it's an inactivity timeout, okay, but basically we're not in the window, then we're just going to return. We're not going to send it anywhere. Okay, so within the window, we're doing a send. If it's still an activity timeout, okay, we are not going to do the send. Of course, you still have to add you have to add the inactivity timeout piece onto that condition, because what if it was like, a connection alert, okay, adapter disconnected, blah, blah, blah. Well, then you'd pass this constraint, you'd go in here, but then that when here, if you just put a 1 there, would actually fire, and you don't want that. So we need a condition here. We need 2 whens. Okay, so there's the window. Then in our transform, we're keeping it easy here in the transform, and we're just doing let's go and look at that. Our transform is webinars alert request to application support. Webinars alert request to application support. Okay. Okay, and here what we're doing is we're just mapping over most of the alert requests. Okay, and we do a couple things. First, we say set this trace email property, use a lookup table, okay, into the application admins table and look up the source config name. And that's where it says that, for that ADT EMR component, michael.brady@intersystems.com is matched up there. For the lab component, it's Sue O'Leary's email. And of course, if you want to peek at the lookup table, we can. Okay, so we just have each component. We have different, in theory, external admins or support folks that are linked up to each one of those business services, which really means these are people that we can email from those business services. Okay, that's really it for the data transformation. I'm including a trace here because it's nice. It's nice to just trace the email kind of to prove it right in there, and then you can see that in our that's why that number 3 got there too. Also nice new feature in 2017, Ensemble 2017 one, we also see the business rule logged here, and I'm doing full logging on the business rule. Okay, so that's one way to do it. I've created a custom function, okay, for my window where I care about these inactivity timeout alerts. And then I just created a lookup table and basically associated business services with external admins. Okay, so we just talked about that basic solution where I wrote a custom function to create the window where we care about the inactivity timeout. Now what I'm going to do is take advantage of the business partner setting that you have for business components. Okay, so we have this feature business partners, and what the idea is that I can actually create a business partner for my EMR application and for the lab application. Okay, what I've done is, and how to create business partners is you just go to Ensemble Configure Business Partners. Okay, and you see I've created 3 here. One for the EMR, guess what? That's Michael Brady. One for the lab, that's Sue O'Leary. Oop, don't like that typo. And one for radiology, that's Shane Rose. All right, so I've created those business partners, and basically you just document the person that is responsible for the upstream system. So maybe it's a senior support person, maybe again it's an admin, just like the person that you would call if you're having problems. If maybe the messages from the radiology system all of a sudden are really, really funky. Okay, who's the person that you would call for that? So that's the contact you should put here. We also have alternate contacts you can include down there. I didn't include any alternate contacts for this case, but you absolutely could do that as well. Okay, so I have that set up on my business services. And now I'm going to go back to my data transformation. Whoop. I'm going to go edit my data transformation to use to look up the email in a different way. So here, let me just go ahead and edit this. Okay, so I'm going to set up, set this trace email property. We're still going to look up the source config name, but instead we're going to look up the business partner of the source component. So we have this get business partner email function. I'll show that code in just 2 seconds. Basically what this does is it says for this component name, give me the name of the business partner, look up the associated email for that business partner, okay? So I just change how we're getting the email here, because maybe we're doing it in a more sophisticated way because you're taking advantage of these business partner settings. Yeah, so we've created these business partners, okay? And now you create the business partners. It's really nice for a support person also, by the way. They're looking at this config page. I can hit the magnifying glass. I just see the person. Notice you can even include a note here like, hey, Michael delivers webinars on Thursdays, so it might take him longer to respond on that day. So you even have that stuff down there. Okay, so I just edited the data transformation that is called by the alert rule, and now what it's doing is it's actually using that custom code to get the business partner. Again, the same thing really is going to happen here. Okay, but now you're going to see that that custom function is ripping my email address from the business partner. And let's just go to messages here. And yep, here we see, right, email up. It's not from the lookup table this time. It's actually from the business partner, of course. And you can see the alert destination is michael.brady@intersystems.com. And of course, I do have an email over here. Oh, there's the new one coming in. Okay, a few more things. Now, let's see what happens if we go ahead and edit the business process. Let's change the time window, actually, so that an alert doesn't fire. So we're still going to generate an alert, right? It's just a small difference. We're not going to send it out. So I'll do 6 to 11 is our window now. Okay, we're generating an alert. Okay. The alert's going to come in here. It's not going to pass this condition because it's past 11. It's going to fall into this second when because it still is an activity timeout alert, but we didn't specify a time range. The alert does not fall into the specified time range. Okay, so coming back to my production, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bounce my business services. I'm going to go ahead and say restart on that one, restart on that one. And in 10 seconds, we will throw 2 inactivity timeouts, really one for each service there. Okay? Now, we're going to throw those inactivity timeouts. Those alerts are going to be sent to ens.alert, but we are not actually going to send out an email because we do not fall, right now, the time is not between 6 and 11. So let me go ahead and go to the message viewer here. Take a look at the visual trace there. Okay, so we have an alert request coming in. Number 2, and look, that alert request does say inactivity timeout of 10 seconds. Number 2 is the rule log. I'm doing full rule logging here. It says rule 1, the constraints passed, and then we passed rule 1 when to. So we dropped into the second when, right? We didn't pass the conditions for the first when. That was where we just shrunk the window. And that second when also has a trace action in it, just so we have some more detail here in the visual trace when we actually hit that condition. And it says alert not within specified time range for inactivity timeout, therefore we're not sending it out. So the alert gets generated all the same. We routed it to ens.alert. We have some sophisticated code on ens.alert so that the alert just gets suppressed, basically. We don't actually send it out because, it's after the main window, so we don't care. We don't care about it as much. Okay, so there are lots of other things to imagine. Let's go back to ens.alert and take a look at our alert routing rule. Okay, here, right, when it's within the window, we might actually want to have 2 sends. Okay, so our first send is really, so our main EMR has not sent us a message in 5 minutes or 10 minutes, so in our case it's 10 seconds. Okay, so, and it's within the window that we care about, so we're sending an email to some external application admins. Basically, we're being proactive. We're trying to alert them that we have not received a message from them. Okay, but you might also want to send a message to someone on the integration team. Okay, so that's where you can have one send going to application admins, another send maybe to the issue tracking system will eventually end up with the integration team, or you could send directly to a different component that emails someone on the integration team. Okay, maybe you're doing something fancier and the integration team, this component or this transformation is doing a lookup table to email one person on the weekends and email a different person on the weekdays. Okay, shifting gears, there's even more we can do with proactive alerting. Okay, so kind of moving away from this inactivity timeout setting, let's consider the case where we're consuming some HL7 data, of course, from some upstream system, an EMR or a lab, right? And there is no MRN specified in the PID segment, okay? We'll just suppose that it's PID2, okay? So a business service receives a message, of course, forwards it over to the router, but we want the router to, the first thing the router does, okay, we want to set it up to check to see if there's an MRN. Okay, sometimes they've been sending us messages without an MRN, and that's bad. We don't want to forward that downstream. So if that's the case, what we're going to do is we're going to react to that. Okay, we're anticipating a problem basically, or we're noticing that there's a problem because messages need to have MRNs. So even though we're not having like a data transformation error or a routing rule error, okay, we've just identified that there's a problem with this message, and we similarly want to notify an external person, like the admin of the main EMR. Okay, so over here on my from EMR ADT TCP router, I have a rule set up, okay, where, for 231 ADT AO1s, if there's no patient ID.ID, okay, really that's PID2.1, if that field is empty, add this trace to the visual trace, no MRN found in PID2, okay, and really it's, it's PID2.1, I'll add that in there, and go ahead, do a data transformation. This data transformation changes the message from HL7 to an ENS.alert request. So transform the message and then forward it to ENS.alert, and then ENS.alert will do its thing and route the message accordingly. It has its own logic. Okay, so let's actually go ahead and see that happen. I'm also going to get rid of the inactivity timeouts here, so I'm not sending a bunch of emails. So I'm going to change that to 0 for my from EMR ADT TCP, and I'm going to change this one to 0 as well. I have some messages set up over here. EMR ADT no MRN. Okay, I've just created these messages. You can see here's my PID segment. There is no MRN there in PID2. PID2 is just totally empty. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take that file, I'm going to paste it into C Ensemble HL7 in. Okay, I happen to know, so the component that picked that up was this guy, okay, because it's picking up files in this directory that start with EMR A star, okay? That's what I just dropped in there. And let's look and see what happened. Okay, most recent message here. So we picked up the HL7 message, right? You can see there's no PID over there. We routed it to the router. You can see that our rule executed and we matched rule 1 when 1. We even put in our trace, no MRN found in PID2, okay? So just adding that trace to add more detail here with for these special cases. You don't always have to add traces. Keep in mind that my rule is very simple, right? Of course, this ADT routing rule would be long. There'd be many rules because we're actually conditionally sending the ADTs out to the other systems, right? I'm just showing you guys how to do this, proactive alerting here at the top of it. Okay, coming back to the visual trace. There we go. Okay, so we then, number 4, is the send action, and the data transformation goes from an HL7 message to an alert request. Very simple, right? The source is an HL7 message, target is an alert request, okay? And here in that DTL, I just populated this very easily with no MRN found in PID 2.1, cannot forward message to downstream system. And the source here was from EMR ADT TCP. So let's quickly take a peek at that data transformation. It was that one. Look, we don't care about any of the HL7 data in this case, although you could imagine other cases where you do, and you could map some of that. But for this case, I'm just setting the source config name and setting the alert text to the detail there, no MRN found in PID 2.1. That's really it, okay? Going back to the visual trace, so we did that DTL, and we forwarded the message to ens.alert. ens.alert then fires, and we do the rule logging. And ens.alert now, the rule for our alert process. Okay. Of course, our alert text does not start with inactivity timeout, so these conditions will not match. But down here we have another action where it says when the alert text starts with no MRN found, okay, which is that's the text that we put in the alert text in our own custom alert, essentially. Send to email application admins, so we're really going to send to these external admins, and we're going to do, again, this webinar's alert request to application support transform. So we're going to, again, look up the admin of the EMR system based on the business partner as we did before. Let's go back to the visual trace and see if that happened, right? We have the one alert request, again, coming into ens.alert. Look, you can see the send here to application admins. And look, yeah, here we go. Michael Brady at InterSystems.com, right? And if I went and opened my email, you would see that. There we go. Perfect. Okay. I could send one through the lab, and I'll go ahead and do that. And you're going to see, so I have one set up for right? And then the idea there is that the lab picks it up, routes it over to the, and really this would be like an ORU, but the lab picks it up, routes it to the lab router, and then Sue O'Leary would get the email because Sue O'Leary is the business partner associated with the lab component, right? Have her detailed there, her contact information there. Okay, so again, what we did there is we took in a HL7 message, we forwarded it to our router. We said that if there's no MRN, that's probably pretty bad. I don't want to send that to the downstream systems, but I do want to generate an alert. So generate an alert request, send that message to an external admin. Okay, in our case, it was Michael Brady at InterSystems.com. You also probably would want to send a message to someone on the integration engine team. So on the really like the Health Connect support team, or Ensemble or HealthShare, right? So you would have another send here, message number 8. You'd also see, and then yeah. So you're being proactive. You've recognized there's a problem. They sent you a message without an MRN number. Therefore, you want to notify them. Okay, so we're baking in logic right into our router and using Ensemble's features to notify the upstream system when they're sending bad messages. You could do this with other fields. If things are missing in the MSH, you could do that you could do something very similar. And lastly, of course, we could be more sophisticated in our rule here. We just checked to see if there was anything in PID 2.1. But of course, you could be more sophisticated and look in here for assigning authorities and facilities and look for combinations of them. Or maybe you want to look to see if there's a particular assigning authority there. And if there isn't a particular assigning authority, then you want to generate the error. You can do all of that customization in the rule. Okay, let's jump over to the code here. So I know some of you guys have been chatting in that you wanted to see this. Here we have my get business partner email method and the Z is current time within range method. Okay, so the Z get business partner email method, and remember I just put Z's in front of these to distinguish them as custom functions. You don't have to do that. Maybe you want to put your organization name or a couple letters at the beginning of your custom functions. Again, you don't have to. Here for the business partner, all it does is take one argument. It takes a component name, so something like from EMR ADT TCP. It takes that, and what we do is we look up the business partner with this class ens.director. So we say get host setting value of our component from EMR ADT TCP and get me the business partner. So now business partner name equals the business partner. Here then we say, well, set the business partner equal to, okay, so we got the name of the business partner. Now we have to actually get the business partner with this line. That's what this one does. So we open up that business partner, which in this case was EMR. Then we set the email to, okay, now that we have the business partner, rip the email off the primary contact and set it and return the email. Of course, you could add more conditions in here and see if there's an alternate contact and add that detail. I was just keeping it simple. Our other method where we created that window for the inactivity timeouts, really easy. It just takes a begin time and an end time. I'm not doing any reformatting or checking of the formats of the times, but you could put that in here as well. We just use some of these ztimeh functions to change the time format. And of course, we have a big condition here. Okay. Okay, so that's it for the functions. Jumping back here. So that's what I have for you. So we went through a couple different examples. You saw us recognizing that if a particular component goes inactive between this window, and we wrote a custom function to allow us to just put in a window. If it's in that window and the EMR hasn't processed a message in 10 minutes, we care about that and we want to notify the admin. And we want to notify the admin dynamically, right? When the EMR throws an error, we want to notify Michael Brady. When the EMR goes inactive, we want to notify Michael Brady. When the lab goes inactive, we want to notify Sue O'Leary. And we're doing that with the data transformation. And first what we did is we used a lookup table, right? We said, okay, well, we could just build a lookup table where all the component names are actually mapped to email addresses. Right, so here, Michael Brady is responsible for the EMR ones. Sue O'Leary is responsible for the lab. Shane Rose is responsible for radiology. And you can use that in your alert transformation to set the alert destination by using that lookup table. Okay. Maybe even a more sophisticated approach then is what we saw a second time. What we're doing is we're setting the alert destination by looking up the business partner attached or associated with this business service. So because I'm using the business partner and I set it here, we look up that business partner, we get the email address, and then that gets set into the alert destination. Okay, so we're using business partners and dynamically alerting people outside of the integration engine team based on when the relevant component something happens or it goes inactive or sends a bad message in. So what we'll go ahead and do is we will just switch back to the video, and then Sue, if any good questions came in, you can just go ahead and ask them and I'll answer. Okay, so we just got a little question to display the custom code. I'll leave that up at the end of the webinar so you can look at that again. But Sue, how about you fire off a couple questions?
Yes. Can alerts be sent to a distribution list?
Great question. Obviously important there. Yep, they absolutely can. So it's really not handled on the Ensemble side. It's actually handled like on your SMTP server side. So absolutely you can. Also, I didn't really mention, we were only really doing one email at a time there, one email address at a time. But of course, you could have a string of, a bunch of emails separated out there. And then Ensemble blasts your SMTP server with that. Your SMTP server would then email everybody. So yep, absolutely. Great question.
Another question, does the business function lookup that you created look at both the primary and alternate contacts?
Great question. The one I created does not. I just wanted to keep it simple, but of course you could check. So of course you'd want to look up the primary one. Maybe you want to add a condition there. It says if an alternate contact exists, then append the email address. So now you have first email address, semicolon or comma, second email address.
Can you send an alert to multiple business partner profiles simultaneously via the business process?
It's a great question. So let's think about, just to flesh out the question again, it's that, hey, I figured out that I have some alert I want to be proactive about and email external application admins. And for some reason, I want to email the business partner attached to this guy and this guy down here. Okay, you absolutely can do that, but the trick then there is how exactly is ens.alert going to figure out to email this business partner and this business partner? Now you can always write hard code in there any way you want. We were doing it dynamically by looking up the source name, the name of the component that threw the error. Okay, this component went inactive. Coming along with that is the component's name. We looked up the business partner attached to that component. So it's kind of like couple parts, right? Component name, look up its business partner, look up that person's email. So if you have a way where you know that you want to look at this one, then sure, you can absolutely do it. Without knowing more about the use case, I can't say exactly how you do that dynamically, but you could. Also, just one more point on that. In my demo, I intentionally had myself as the same business partner for both of these, the EMR ADT and the EMR ORM component. That's because that would make sense, right? You could have that different, but if I'm the main admin for the EMR, I should be on both of those. So excellent question. Thanks for that. Okay, related question. Thanks, Sue. You want to fire?
Yes. Can you send an alert to a business partner profile even if it has not been configured on the business service?
Excellent question. Absolutely. Okay, so you haven't configured business partners, but you just want to create them so you can look them up dynamically. It's a great feature. Absolutely, you can do that. I was just looking it up because it was attached. You could actually just look it up, say, hey, is EMR somewhere in the config name? Maybe you look that piece up. Okay, you piece that, and then you look up the business partner that has EMR in the name. Sure.
Another one, how do you send the URL for the message viewer or event log in the email that is associated with the alert?
Great question. So the idea here is that emails fire off from these business operations, right? And I was just using the out-of-the-box business operations. They sit around, they wait for alert requests to come in, and then they just put those together and grab some extra system information and send out an email. Okay, that's how they're written out of the box. Okay, what you can do is you can just make a small customization to those. And because it's very nice, the URL for a visual trace is really the way to go here. The URL for a visual trace is just this standard URL and then the session tagged at the very end. Okay, so standard URL, session tagged at the very end. Good news, the session comes in with the message coming in here. So all you have to do is make a small tweak to the standard email operation, so you extend to that class, and you just also include a link to session or visual trace session or something like that, and then that includes the long email. You dynamically add in the session that came in on the alert request. Okay, so just a small customization. The reason we don't include that with the product automatically is that we can't, your URL is going to be custom to you based on the name here, the actual name of your, the web server ports you happen to be using, the name of your instance. So we can't bake that in. You just have to add a couple small things. Hope that answered that one.
Next one. Can an alert be triggered on receipt of a NAC?
Absolutely, yeah. So on receipt of a NAC, so on receipt of a NAC, that's going to be a business operation that receives that NAC, and you basically just have options on the business operation. If you look at a TCP business operation and you look through all the options, you'll have some things like reply code actions. Reply code actions allow you to disable the component if you want. You can mark the message as an error and move on to the next message. You could keep trying over and over again. So you have a bunch of options there on your business operation. Absolutely. Just look at a TCP business operation and look at the ACK-related settings, and you'll see those.
Next question.
Next question. Thanks.
How can you set it up so you don't send a lot of alerts to a user when the error is happening each 5 seconds? For example, send one email each 5 minutes instead.
Excellent. So first, I would attack that a couple different ways. First, your inactivity timeout window probably shouldn't be 5 seconds. That's very, very narrow. Okay, remember the whole purpose here of using an activity timeout is to be proactive, like, hey, we think there might be a problem. So if you make it just 5 minutes anyway, like you're catching that, you're just saying, hey, I haven't received a message from my main EMR in 5 minutes, then I'll send you an email. So that would maximum send one email every 5 minutes. Also, let's just suppose the upstream system is down, so you're getting 0 messages. Okay, they send you a message, that triggers it. Then 5 minutes later, if we don't get any more, then we'll email them. If we get no more messages, we're not emailing them again and again and again and again. It only gets reset once we get another message in there, and that's the point of it. You always want it to. It's any window of 5 minutes, there could be a potential problem. So one way to think about that then is just we'll make your inactivity timeout window something longer, more reasonable, 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. Okay. Another way to do it is you could do fancier stuff in ens.alert where you're checking, hey, this is an activity timeout. Look in the event log. Do I have another inactivity timeout? And do some comparisons that way. So that's another way to go about it. You just write more logic in here where ens.alert looks at past alerts. The component's still generating the alert. Okay, it's kind of, it's unintelligent in that sense. You're just using the standard settings. It's generating the alert. And then ens.alert is the one doing the fancy stuff, comparing to past alerts, that kind of thing. So a couple of approaches there. Excellent question. Let's go to the next one, Sue.
How do you send an alert when messages start flowing again?
Ooh, good question. Yes. So again, there, what you're going to have to do is either put the logic in ens.alert, or you could have another monitor service that's kind of just running in the background doing monitoring, basically saying if any component's inactive, check if it switches to active or switches to green, like it's good. So one way to go there would be to write a custom business service that's just doing some monitoring on the inside of this. Then when it sees, or maybe it's checking every 5-10 seconds, then when it sees that flip, it sends an email upstream again. And obviously it'd be a different email, right? Message is now flowing. Excellent question. Sue, do you have another one?
Can you capture all errors for a day and then send as an attachment to users?
Great question. You can do that. So what you would do is, so you say, we're still going to log all the errors, okay? And maybe we're going to generate the alerts too, because we want that alert text. We like that, okay? But we're just not going to have ens.alerts actually send them anywhere, okay? Instead, what you're going to do is you could set up a task. So this is like really a cache task. Or again, you could do the business service thing, but this time it only run once a day. And let's just go task route. So that task then, what it does is it would just gather up all of the actual alerts that got sent to ens.alert. Or maybe you only care about certain alerts, so you could use that alert text as a guide to only get certain alerts. Okay, your task runs once a day. It just looks as all of the alerts today that start with an activity timeout or whatever it may be, gather all those up. It's up to you to then format them. But of course, yeah, you could use a business operation or just use your task to write some cache code. You'd write some cache code and send it out as an attachment, absolutely. Okay, so a couple approaches there. You could do it with Ensemble components, or you could do it at the cache level. Awesome question. Sue, another one?
Yes. How would you send an alert about a rejected HL7 message or an errored HL7 message?
Awesome. So let's just rejected or errored. So the example we talked about, we're baking in logic into our production to figure out, hey, this is a bad message. There's no PID. Okay, there's no MRN in PID 2.1. So it's probably, something's wrong with the upstream system. So we probably want to email them. But different from that, right? What if a message just comes into a business process here, business process A, And we execute every single rule, but it doesn't match any of them. Okay, well then what you'd want to do is that, you have a bunch of rules here, rule 1, 2, ... 10. 10 is basically just going to be this empty catch-all rule. And what you're going to do is if you make it all the way to rule 10, you didn't match any of the regular rules, let's generate an alert and send it over to ens.alert. Okay, so that's one way to do that. Another way to do that, if it's an errored HL7 message, maybe it came in, we executed a DTL, the DTL errored out. Well, the good news there is that the process is just going to generate that error, log it on its own. All you have to do is then just say alert on error for the business process. Okay, so if it's truly an error because a DTL fired and there was some bad code, okay, just say yes, alert on error, and the business process will just send the error. If it's something else where it's not really an error in the code, but it just is an error, kind of like an error in the logic, you need to put the logic in there. So just have a catch-all rule at the bottom of your rule. And if you make it all the way down there, you want to generate an alert, and you do something similar to what we did in the demo. Excellent question. Got another one, Sue?
Do you know how to have HTML content embedded in the email?
So that would just be, that's really just all done on the business operation. Okay, and if you need more help with that, that'd be a good question for the developer community or for your sales engineer. But it's really just, again, you're customizing a business operation there, extending the regular email, formatting it differently.
And the last one, I didn't get clarification on, but maybe you understand it. What are the alert groups by the services?
The alert groups on the services. Okay, so you might have noticed a couple, I was clicking around, we were looking at lots of components. There was one thing all the way down there called alert groups. We actually use alert groups for another alerting feature we have called managed alerts. Managed alerts are basically a way where you can have like a mini issue tracking and escalation system inside of Ensemble. So some organizations take advantage of that. Some say, no, we don't need Ensemble to do it. We're just going to send messages to some other issue tracking system. But alert groups are a setting that basically make components related to one another, and then they're used in the managed alerts. So like in this case, right, Michael Brady might be responsible for these ones, these components. Sue O'Leary might be responsible for the lab, and so on. It's just a way to tie components together with managed alerts. Great question.
And folks are wondering if they can have the code that you used for the presentation.
You can. You can. Thanks for asking that one. We will post the code on, there's a way to make it available on learning.intersystems.com. So we will post that. Of course, with that comes caveats. This is not, I really just created simple code here to get the production going. It's not like official code. You should not just use this and then throw it right into any live production. But the good thing is, and I think this is probably why most people are asking, that should get you started. So maybe you want to include that alternate contact email. And yeah, this will be a great guide for that. Great.
That's the end of our questions.
That's awesome. So thanks so much for all the questions. I really appreciate you listening and your patience. So thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in. It was a good time. Have a wonderful day.